Welcome to the Unveiling Shadows podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Mosby. Join me as I dive into powerful stories of resilience and strength. In each episode, I sit down with guests who have faced similar journeys of coercive control, financial manipulation, and personal invasion. Together, we uncover the shadows, share our experiences, and inspire others to reclaim their lives. Tune in, listen, and be a part of the community that stands tall against the forces that seek to control us. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Unveiling Shadows. I'm your host, Kimberly Mosby. And let's talk about this nano fog for a moment, because I live in Salt Lake City. Sometimes I refer to it as Salt Lake Shitty, but that's my personal opinion. And let me share my screen with you.
Could that fog have been a coincidence based on your findings of what you found in at least some of the fog samples? Was it harmless?
Well, it is not, number one, it's not harmless. I mean, what was identified was graphene and aluminum oxide. There was other particulates in there as well, like ferric oxide. But the ones that stand out most, that have the most impact on the human body, that connect people up to the Internet of Things, is the graphene ferric oxide or the graphene oxide. And the aluminum, of course, that in itself, these are materials that are being used as the platform for communication between the cloud and your human body.
Yep, which I've said that before. So I've talked about graphene. I've talked about the Internet of Things or the Internet of Bodies. And it has to have heavy metal in order to connect you to the dirty electric grid.
Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report here. That was Dr. Robert Young, one of my favorite researchers and one of my favorite people in the world, talking about what he found in the fog, or as Dr. Alfonso Manzo would call it, the nano fog. Friends, stay tuned for this blockbuster report. Before we start, just a quick word about our sponsor. And establishes gold just about nation and with a quality. Hey friends, let's kick it off with Dr. Robert Young. He's back, and boy, do we have a lot of important information to cover in this one. Guys, we're going to be talking about the fog, the oppressive fog that I experienced for 3 days, that so many people around the country experienced. Robert Young has new data collected from the fog, folks. We're going to talk about that and so much more in this conversation with my friend, Dr. Robert Young. How are you, Doc?
I'm great. Sean, thanks for asking. Thanks for having me on your show. You know, you're doing great work. Keep it up. And, you know, it's wonderful to actually have sources like yours where people can actually get the truth that can literally set themselves free. Taking back your bodies, the sovereign rights to the health and well-being of your body is so critically important. And to get out of the synthetic chemical poisonous world and start doing things naturally is so critically important right now. And we're getting hit at every level. We're getting hit with the water we're drinking. We're getting hit with the food we're eating. We're getting, of course, we're seeing the wildfires. We're seeing, you know, factories going up, you know, in Elkhorn Slough area. Here again, this mass landing power plant north of Monterey and Carmel. This is horrendous, because it just adds to the already toxic air that we're dealing with, and it's putting up nano and micro particulates of lithium. Graphene, aluminum is getting in, and these go into your respiratory system. And once it's in the respiratory system, it gets into the interstitial fluid. And from there, it's no stopping where it's going to end up. It's going to end up in the brain. It's going to end up in the heart. It's going to end up in the reproductive organs. So this is a huge tragedy. And why this actual factory isn't put in an obscure out of the area, but having it, you know, in an area that is as sensitive, eco-sensitive, you know, full of all kinds of marine life, including endangered California sea otters. What is a factory like that doing in the midst of our communities?
By the way, I was just in San Diego. Here we have all these rare earth minerals spewing into the sky, only to fall down, I suppose, in the oceans and pollute the oceans further. Yeah. But all part of the Green New Deal, I guess, Doc.
Yeah, the Green New Deal isn't a Green New Deal because I used to live in San Diego. And do you know how many sea otters would be on those rocks? They would be on top of each other. And now there are hardly any. That's a problem.
Well, the Green New Deal is not new. It's a lie that's been going on. And when we look at uh, the world's need for more CO2, not less, more. I mean, that's the element in which the plants adsorb and absorb to thrive. And without that, we die. And in fact, humans use CO2. We think we just expel that through respiration. Not the case. 90% of the CO2 that the body uses, it takes that, adds water and salt to it. And this is what the stomach's main purpose is to make a compound called baking soda. You know it as baking soda, but sodium bicarbonate, NaClO3. And the ingredients are water, salt, and CO2. If you start cutting out CO2 in the system, you die. It's as important as oxygen. It plays a vital part. In fact, when you are exposed to toxic chemicals, when you're exposed to smoke, soot, and especially, looking at all the particulates, that are measuring down in the micron and millimicron size that people are breathing in from the fires in Los Angeles. And now this fire that's going on in just south of San Francisco with this factory, it's horrendous, and we're measuring that. We're looking at these particulates, not just the size of them, which are ranging anywhere from 1 to 2 microns. These are micrograms that they're smaller than a platelet. They're definitely smaller than a red blood cell. Red blood cells are 7 microns. These particulates are under the micron size and even a millimicron. And this is what's going to do harm to everything that's living. And so it seems like we're on the opposite side of the science. We're talking about reducing CO2 when the planet needs more CO2. We're talking about, reducing, this toxic element, from our bodies, and yet 90% of the CO2 that's being produced is used by the stomach to produce a compound that alkalizes our food. And people need to understand the physiology of the stomach and the whole so-called digestive system, which is not a digestive system at all. It is what provides true immunity. True immunity is provided by maintaining the alkaline design of the body fluids. And there is a system called the alkalophile system, which is not taught in school, should be taught to everyone. And it begins with the stomach's main purpose, and that's to produce base materials of sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium in the bicarbonate and carbonate forms to maintain alkalinity at 7.4 of the blood and 8.4 to 8.5 of the interstitial fluids. And when you take those two fluids, the plasma fluid makes up 10% of total body fluids, or 20% of the extracellular. When you're looking at the interstitial fluids outside the blood, which surrounds every cell of the human body, I call this the body ocean. These are the fluids that surround the cell. Science has just recognized this as if it's a new organ. It's been with us for so long. I studied it in the 80s. Now we're just barely talking about it. Work is being published on it. We've been testing the biochemistry of it. And 80% of everything that happens to you, whatever the symptom is called, begins in the interstitium, in the interstitial fluid. In Germany, where I studied, it's called the colloidal connective tissue of the Schad. This is the largest organ of the human body, not the skin. The skin is the third kidney that eliminates waste products from this organ. And this is where all the action is.
Because your immune system resides in your gut.
Not in the blood, not in the intracellular fluids. These are the 3 fluids: plasma, intracellular, and interstitial fluid. And the largest body of water, which is identical, or should be identical, to the ocean pH is dropping too. And of course, it's causing death to marine life. And of course, the degradation of the coral calcium. People say, what's going on with coral calcium? Why is it disintegrating? because the ocean is trying to maintain its alkaline design at 8.4.
And it's being poisoned by wearing sunscreen because sunscreen is not good for you. Nobody used to wear sunscreen.
It's got to feel so good. And the reason why is because it's identical pH, ideally pH to 8.4 at over negative 100 millivolts as our own internal body fluid, specifically the interstitial fluid, which our cells are bathed in. So I use this analogy. When the fish is sick, what do you treat? Do you treat the fish? Do you vaccinate the fish? Do you give it, drugs? No. You change the environment because the fish is only as healthy as the water it's swimming in. This is an example, a metaphor for the cell, body cell, liver cells, heart cells, brain cells, bone cells are only as healthy as the fluids it's bathed in. That fluid has a name. It's called interstitial fluid. It has an ideal pH at 8.4, which is 10 times more alkaline than the blood. And the reason why doctors say, oh, it doesn't matter. If you
see these geoengineered weather modification nanoparticulates, a toxic fog, and that's in Florida, but it's all over. They're doing this purposefully.
Measure the pH of the blood. We don't do it because it doesn't change more than 0.1, of one tenth. In other words, the alteration from 7.365. But people die. The number one cause of disease, you would say, is what? Heart disease? You would say cancer? Would you see medical error? No. It's decompensated acidosis of the interstitial fluids of the interstitium. It's called sepsis. They don't even put it up there. It's the number one cause of death. People going into acidosis. We start talking about acidosis and alkalization, and when we're breathing in these particulates, it activates all the things. And the stomach is the main organ for providing immunity, not the leukocytes, not the neutrophils or the granulocytes or the agranulocytes, the lymphocytes. These are backup systems to deal with this pollution that you're showing, Sean.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about what I'm showing you, the fog. Now, we got the battery fire in California. That only adds injury to insult, given the fires these poor folks are dealing with in California. And by the way, like I said, I was in San Diego, just 90 miles south, and people were fleeing to the hotel we were staying at because they were homeless. They were being burned out of their homes. Meanwhile, people are breathing all of this stuff. We got blanketed in this fog in the city in which I live in Minnesota for 3 days, Doc. Now, little did I realize that was happening all over the country, all over the world to some degree.
Yes.
And people are very concerned about what was in that fog. If you don't mind, I'd actually like to play a soundbite from my recent guest, Dr. Alfonso Manzo, because he calls it nano fog.
So there's actually this ancient demon that was called Foglet. And every time you see pictures of this thing, he is clouded in this fog. So I just find it really interesting that they created a nanotechnology called Foglet or utility fog, and there's actually this ancient demon called Foglet. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. I think it's really weird. But yeah, you go into Wikipedia and other places, and you can go into NASA and read about foglets. It's really weird. It's this weird concept of almost having a actual real cloud, except physical. So that there's this fog-like substance that they can spray. It's nanotechnology, but you're going to be able to store information on there, which is why it's called utility fog, and get information off of it, and all kinds of weird things like that.
All right, I'll end that. Coming back to Dr. Robert Young. Doc, tell us about the fog, your research. What'd you find?
Well, it's right behind me. You're actually seeing what's in a foglet. You're seeing the nanotechnology at over 500,000 times magnification, looking at high-resolution transmission electron microscopy, identified by directed energy X-ray spectroscopy. And if you look at the recent study, which I'm happy article that I've written, which is now in peer review, it's called "The Role of Graphene and Aluminum in Fog Systems." So when we're actually looking at this technology, I can put that behind me, or I can share my screen for this article. I'm happy to provide this article to anyone who asks, or we can make it available. it will be available at drrobertyoung.com, so you can access this. And here again, you can also find a lot of my articles at ResearchGate. These are peer-reviewed, double-blinded, many double-blinded reviewed research publications. You can find at academia. You can find them also at ResearchGate if you want, or you can go to drrobertyoung.com. The title of this is The Role of Graphene and Aluminum Oxide. That video, the gentleman that was talking about the fog systems, technology that's there is aluminum and graphene, and this is what connects people up to the Internet of Things, the Internet of Bodies, and this is the active material to receive and transmit information. This is the material that sets the foundational base, kind of like your router, to receive and transmit so that you can have Wi-Fi in your home. This is how we can have hands-off, remote or wireless communications, or those who were setting up this technology, wireless technology with the human heart, with the human body fluids, with the human brain. And
you have no privacy. Do you understand where this is going? You have no privacy, because if they can hook you up to the cloud of the Internet of Things, they know everything about you. They know when you wipe your ass.
This all sounds sci-fi, but it's not. It's here. It's active. The IP addresses, the MAC addresses are showing up in people. We're doing research studies on this. We're identifying the MAC address. Those are those who've been transfected with this nanotechnology that is electromagnetic, can receive and transmit, but it's foreign, therefore it's carcinogenic. It will cause harm. There's no way you can live with this material in your body, let alone the directed microwave or pulsating frequencies that are coming at you.
So being a targeted survivor, I had to do heavy metal detoxes to get the subliminal messaging and some of the controlling aspects of them trying to kinetically control me out of my body, so that it's not as bad.
Is going to affect the temperature of the body fluids. This could cause a variety of different symptomologies, which will lead to a reverse transformation or a reverse magnetic switch from the surface charge of cells called the zeta potential, reversing to positive rather than negative, and that leads to pathological blood coagulation. And when you're in pathological blood coagulation, you have circulation problems. It can lead to cold hands, cold feet, lightheadedness, dizziness, all the symptomologies that you would associate with a germ. No, it's not germ, folks. You're not sick. You're being chemically and being chemically poisoned and affected by these pulsating electromagnetic frequencies that are doing the harm.
Well, I'm going to say it, radioactively being radiated. In my opinion, that's what he wanted to say. We're being radiated to death.
And we know they're there because we're picking them up and looking at the droplets. That's just one way for people to get transfected, is in the smog, the fog. It's delivering this technology. And some people are reporting that they can actually smell them or taste the metallic taste of this material. So you can't be outside in this. If you're living in the suburbs, you're better off than those that are living in the city, away from this technology, but I want you to be aware of it. And if I do a share screen here, there it is. I can show you some additional micrographs that have been taken at 1 million times magnification under high resolution transmission electron microscopy.
Yes, sir. Let me end my screen share so that you can begin yours, because we want to know what you found specifically in this fog and what you find.
Well, that's why I wrote the article. I was shocked to actually, find this, and these samples that were tested by our team. We're looking at this thing. We're looking at graphene oxide and aluminum particulates in the fog dew, in the fog droplets. So if we go up to the top of the article, let's Let me just do this. This is the title of it, The Role of Graphene, Aluminum, and Fog System, Emerging Insights. This is the one that's under peer review right now. Hopefully it'll be published in February, no later than March. It introduces you to the fog systems and as a transvector of these nano and microparticulates of graphene oxide, which is the foundational element that was used in the inoculation.
Don't eat rice until you watch this.
Rice is unfortunately pure glucose in starch form.
If you want to call them that, I know that others call it a bioweapon, introducing the graphene.
Bioweapon is right. So in Salt Lake City, like I said, I'm on this SciQuest bid, a platform for government contracting, and they were putting out a bid for polyaluminum as a water treatment. And I'm sorry, fluoride, chlorine, and polyaluminum do not belong in water, because then it means you're bathing in it.
Graphene oxide in the carrying agent, and of course, was the polyethylene glycol, or the hydrogel was the actual capsid which contained the graphene as the foundational platform to hook people up to this wireless network,
Internet of
this
Things.
Internet of Things and Internet of Bodies. So this goes into the materials that were found. We were focused on aluminum particles, already recognized for their contribution to atmospheric pollution, and we're finding this in everyone.
So I'm going to read this a little bit. These materials introduced through processes like industrial emissions, vehicle exhaust, and alleged aerial spraying activities, which we know they do. Those are called chemtrails. Interact with fog droplets to modify their behavior and density, resulting in denser vision, obstructing fog events. So when you're in a city and you see every major commercial building spewing out this fog, including but not limited to hospitals, then you know what this is. It's not just coming from the chemtrails they're spraying by drones in the air. In my opinion, it's coming from commercial buildings. When you see the big clouds of smoke, that's what this is, in my opinion.
And the beauty of this, there is a solution to this, but using high resolution transmission electron microscopy, we're able to determine, and spectroscopy, we're able to determine the chemical composition of the fog, which of course I've mentioned the graphene oxide. This is what it looks like at 1 million times magnification at 0.1 to 0.2 nanometer resolution. In order to see this type of thing, this construct of this hexagonal material that carries a zeta potential, which is positive, in order to remove this, you have to have an opposite polarity. It's like a magnet. If you want to attract something, you have to use the opposite polarity of that side that you're looking at. But the zeta potential of graphene is positive. The zeta potential of the masterpiece zeolite Z in solar G sea minerals at a pH of over 9 at an ORP, or reduction rating, of between negative 200 to 300 millivolts, meaning that it has an ample amount of ions that are electrically negatively charged in order to begin the chelation of these positive charged particles of graphene, aluminum, and there's a whole host of them. Those are just the two main ones. So the two main ones, of which here again, aluminum, this is what it looks like under high resolution dark field transmission electron microscopy at 0.1 to 0.2. Here again, the surface charge on this is positive in order to remove it. And these particles are atomic and subatomic levels in order to see this stuff. So we're talking about high resolution dark field transmission. This is not a compound microscope. These are that are viewing things at 1,000. You can't see what I'm showing you at 100x or 1,500 times magnification, or 2,000, even at 20,000. We're talking about 500,000 up to over 1 million times magnification with a resolution of 0.1 to 0.2 nanometers. So these are some of my recommendations that are part of this article. I've written several articles on aerosoling, that's going on. That has been published, so you can access that off the website drrobertyoung.com. If I go to that, let me just go out of here and see and show that, because I want to show because of ignorance. Don't die because you don't know. That's not a good excuse.
Don't die because you don't know. I'll put the link to the paper and the link to this video in the bio. If you like what I'm doing, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel.
You need to know this so you can make a choice whether you want to believe it or not believe it, or do something about it, because there are ways to protect yourself. So let me just go out of this for 1 minute. Sean, go ahead if you have any questions.
Chelation. I was saying it chelation, but I was pronouncing it wrong. It's actually chelation. So that's the heavy metal cleanse that I was speaking about in some of my other podcasts, and some of my social shorts is chelation. So it's the removal of heavy metals from your body.
About what I've stated so far, I just want to...
I do.
Yes, go ahead.
I do.
Yeah.
Could you please explain to people, by the way, we're going to talk a little bit later in the show about the attacks against Masterpiece. I want to give you an opportunity to defend yourself, because you've been defamed. Masterpiece has been defamed. The result of that has been a multi-million-dollar lawsuit to end the slander, libel, and defamation. And I just want people to understand, from my point of view, you are one of the most intelligent, well-spoken, articulate people that I've ever met or had conversations with about these topics. The microscopy alone, you're working at a different level than anybody I've ever met, just when it comes to the microscope work alone. Can you please flush that out for people?
Yes, because, with a compound microscope, it could be a research microscope. It could be dark field, which is mainly what you're seeing on the internet. It could be phase contrast, which kind of gives you shades of gray and dark, but it's easier to see things under that. Of course, most of the work that's being done is called dark field, which means it has a background. And what's happening is the light is hitting the cell membranes at perpendicular, and so it lights up the cell membrane, but you can't see very much what's going on the outside unless the particulates are bouncing around. They have objectives. Those objectives are like lenses of a camera. They could be at 4x, they could be at 10x, they could be at 20. It says that they're looking at something at 1,500 times. That's under the microscope. Under the microscope, and the way you do it is simple mathematics. You take the objective X. So that's about the limit of dark field magnification. The only other way you can get magnification, which does not give you resolution, okay, so you may be seeing something bigger, but the resolution kind of diminishes significantly, is if you hook it up to a camera and project that onto a screen, and then, of course, you can make it as big or small as you want. And doing so, you may be looking on a 17-inch screen, through the camera, giving it more magnification up into the multi-thousand, could be 10, 15, 17,000 times, up to 25,000 times. But it doesn't give you the detail that you need. So when you're looking at the detail that you're looking at right now, that's at 500,000 times. Okay, the beam not only hits the membrane, but it goes inside the membrane, passes it, so you can see both outside and inside. If it's scanning, all you're doing is getting the outside, anatomy of that. So I'm oversimplifying this. It is more technical, but I want to simplify it as much as possible. People can understand that resolution and magnification is everything, particularly in the nano room. So I'm going to make a black and white statement. You cannot see the nano world with a compound microscope, with a dark field microscope, with a phase contrast microscope, or a bright field, which is lower magnification, even at that. You can't see the nano. You need an electron scanning or transmission microscopy, and that just gives you the construct of the material that you're looking at. If you want, and so you have to do both.
Opinion. Where did the fog samples come from, geographically speaking? And number two, could the fog I experienced and people around the country people in some other parts of the world, all within the same week period, about 3-4 day period. Could that fog have been a coincidence, a harmless coincidence, based on your findings of what you found in at least some of the fog samples? Was it harmless?
Well, it is not, number one, it's not harmless. I mean, what was identified was graphene and aluminum oxide. There was other particulates in there as well, like ferric oxide, but the ones that stand out most, that have the most impact on the human body, that connect people up to the Internet of Things, is the graphene ferric oxide, or the graphene oxide, and the aluminum. Of course, that in itself, these are materials that are being used as the platform for communication between the cloud and your human body.
Okay, now let me follow a question. Sorry to interrupt. That must mean that the areas that experienced the heavy fog, like I did for 3 days, were sprayed. This was a deliberate program to spray American citizens across the nation. Am I overstating that, or do I have that
You
right?
have that
Based
right.
on what you found in fog samples, they must have been spraying us.
Yeah, that's called cloud seeding. It's called geoengineering. It's called
So there's a geoengineering map that I'm going to put the link into this bio as well as this video. And it will show you who's doing the geoengineering in which state. And in the state of Utah, I think they have 381 programs and sub-programs of cloud seeding geoengineering.
Yeah, and aerosoling. These are the things I've written about. This is what I've published on. This is my expertise, is colloidal chemistry. That's I have a doctorate in this. And the bottom line is, this just doesn't happen. It happens only if you're doing it intentionally. And so
You're not a child, you're a man. So stop wearing so many layers to go outside and get the bearskin tactical
material is foreign to fog. You may be picking up some particulates, of carbon monoxide. You may be picking up, some other. If you're looking at, let's say, the wildfires versus the fog, it's totally different. But in the fog droplets, graphene aluminum is an alarming situation. Just when I found graphene in the 4 major inoculations, Johnson & Johnson, the Pfizer, the Moderna, and the AstraZeneca. And that was the commonality. What is the common thread in all of this? Why are we finding graphene in the water? Why are we finding graphene in the air? Why are we finding graphene in the food now? Why are we finding graphene in the fog droplets? Why are we finding all of these highly magnetic materials that look like snow coming and raining down upon us in our atmosphere?
Yeah, why?
And in our soils.
Sorry for this quick interruption, and a quick word about a sponsor.
There have never been more medical breakthroughs than there are right now. Country, and what they are.
In our atmosphere and in our soils. And so the only way you can look at this is you have to look at it chemically, but you also have to look at it anatomically, and this is what we're doing. As far as the answer to your question, we're talking about Southern California, the LA area, all the way down through the Orange County area, all the way down to the San Diego County, San Diego area, like Escondido, like Oceanside, like Newport Beach, like these are some of the areas where these fogs are showing up. As far as methodology, that's explained in the insights into fog water composition and aerial spraying, and some of the detoxification solutions. Very, very important to know that this is happening. I knew this problem many years ago because I was dealing with it up at Valley Center, where the PH Miracle Ranch was for over 23 years. I moved from Alpine, Utah, which is south of Salt Lake City, Utah, and I know I didn't want to live in Salt Lake because of the bowl there that holds all these poisons, from benzene to to carbon monoxide to other compounds, because of Kennecott copper mining there and some of the chemicals they're using, to It's a city of pollution. It's one of the most toxic cities in the world.
One of the most toxic cities in the world. And I live here. I'm trying to leave. But that's why I call it Salt Lake City.
Is Salt Lake City. And you can literally see that if you're a skier, you just have to go to Snowbird and look down at once you get to the top of the lift and look down into Salt Lake City and literally see the pool of pollution that's there. And it's been a problem for many, many years, even though the solution is just beyond that in the North Shore of the Great Salt Lake, which is the most pristine, concentrated trace mineral solution to these pollutions. That is one of the major ingredients. We call it solargy. And the reason it's solargy because it has the word sol, which is a word in colloidal chemistry, which means two dissimilar ingredients brought together. And these dissimilar ingredients are the elements. There's over 72 elements that are suspending in a solution of water. So you've got sodium in there. You've got all the main electrolytes, sodium, potassium, magnesium, and potassium
in the Great Salt Lake. You do have all those things, but then they're draining it so that it doesn't have as much water in it, so it can't sustain itself. And then if you look at some news articles, probably from the Salt Lake Tribune, I don't know, I don't read that paper, they will tell you that there is arsenic in it. So I'm not sure if they're saying that because they don't want you to get in it to clean your body, or if they're purposely putting that in it so that it's not helping the air, it's hurting you.
The nanocolloidal size, these are trace minerals, as the material that holds the nanotechnology of the zeolite Z. And I've done this with N-acetylcysteine. I've done colloidal chemistry and formulations for glutathione. What's the best glutathione? The small, because size does matter. And when you're talking about size, you want something that can permeate the tissues. It's transdermal. You can take capsules of NAC, you can take capsules of glutathione, and yes, it's a powerful antioxidant, but how much of it actually gets in relationship to the million, if it's not billions of nanoparticles that are in 4 or 5 drops that you put under the tongue that immediately goes into the interstitial fluids and is literally attracted to all the poisons.
So he's saying sublingually, you can take something and it would be better than taking it like in pill format. And IV, obviously going straight into the bloodstream with some glutathione in IV therapy is obviously the most beneficial because it's hitting your bloodstream right away, or, you know, or taking a shot of it from a healthcare provider, homeopathic healthcare provider, probably, in my opinion.
You see, so NAC, glutathione. I just wrote an article on Osteoplex 1. It's a pH miracle product. Osteo. I mean, people are concerned, what about my bones? What about my muscles? Colloidal magnesium, colloidal calcium. You don't pop a bunch of pills. It's not about how much magnesium or how much calcium. It's how small in the system it's in. We are a colloidal system. You take colloidal supplements, and that material is in a base of what we are at a pH of 8.4 to 9 at negative 100 millivolts minimum. And that is what is Masterpiece Zeolite 2.0, which is different than the marine one that we had, which was Masterpiece Zeolite, not Zeolite Z, Zeolite at 1.0, which here again was the nature of the first study, the pilot study we did with 3 people, finding incredible results of the removal of aluminum, lindane, polyethylene glycol, polypropylene, PFOS, PFOA, all of these forever chemicals, microplastics, and heavy metals of mercury, lead, the nanotechnology of graphene, aluminum at 70%. Now we're even doing better with 2.0 because we've adjusted the pH up to that ideal 8.4 to 9 at negative 100 millivolts from what 1.0 Masterpiece was, which was a 3 pH. It was in a positive range.
So what I'd like to tell you is nothing can live in an alkaline state. you should drink, in my opinion, high alkaline water. And a really easy solution, if you can filter your water, great. Hopefully you can get the chlorine and the fluoride out of it. But an easy solution to make water alkaline is to put squeeze a lemon in your water. Any sort of citrus fruit, I know that sounds weird because it's citrus or citric acid, will make your water alkaline. If you can't afford to purchase it, then that's an easy solution for you to do. And as always, like, share, and subscribe to the video. And stay strong. You're not alone. Don't let them take your light. And you got this. Thank you for listening to the Unveiling Shadows podcast. I hope today's episode has shed light on the experiences that too often remain hidden. If you or someone you know has a story to share, please reach out to me. Remember, you're not alone and your voice matters. Follow me on social media and subscribe to the podcast for more inspiring stories. Until next time, stay strong and keep unveiling the shadows.